Well, a new report from the American Cancer Society anticipates 153,000 new colorectal cancer cases this year and about 52,000 deaths. 60% of new cases are actually advanced stage disease, and rates are increasing among younger people. Joining us now is Michael Frierson, who tragically lost his son to the disease, and Dr. Zuri Morel, a colorectal surgeon here in LA. Thank you so much for joining us. I certainly appreciate you both taking the time. I know, Doctor, you had surgery, so we appreciate you leaving there and rushing here for us, but we feel like it's such an important topic. Michael, if you could first tell us a little bit about your son.
First of all, I want to thank you for having us. This is a very important subject that we need to discuss and to talk about Michael. I can't say enough good things about him. I mean, just one of probably the most wonderful people that you'd ever want to meet.
Sadly, though, he was diagnosed at 32, long before we're told that we should get colonoscopy. Yeah. So how did you find out what was really happening?
We were working out one day, and he was dating this young lady, and he kind of felt he was out of shape, so we started working out on the beach. He couldn't run 10 yards. Wow. And so when I saw that, I said, we need to do something about it. We need to get this checked. So when he went and got checked by a physician, they found out that his blood levels weren't sustainable enough to sustain life for a man his age. And then we went through the process of trying to figure out what it was.
But it took a while before he actually got a colonoscopy.
Yeah, I mean, a colonoscopy was the last thing they did to Michael. I mean, they tested him for leukemia before they tested him for colon cancer. So it was absolutely the last thing that they did. And when they tested him, when he had a colonoscopy done, they finally had all these polyps in his colon.
Wow. And I think what's interesting, Doctor, is that a lot of people, myself included, didn't realize that if you have a polyp found, that will turn into cancer.
Yes, so there's two types of polyps. They're the adenomatous polyps, hyperplastic polyps. Adenomatous polyps are the ones that turn into cancer. And really what's so powerful about the colonoscopy is I always tell people it's not done to find cancer. It's the only test a man or woman can have that actually prevents cancer. Because the polyps can turn into cancer, you actually remove a polyp during the colonoscopy. And that's what makes this test so important and so powerful. It's the only one that actually prevents cancer.
Well, I know at one point you were supposed to get a colonoscopy at age 50. Now it's been lowered to 45. But in your opinion, does it need to go down even lower?
You know, in my opinion, it does. But a lot of things, you know, as everything with this country, is that it has to be a cost benefit, right? So what I think is even more important is knowing things that you can do to prevent it, but also knowing the signs and symptoms that will then prompt your physician to get you a colonoscopy.
And as part of that, if a parent has polyps, then their child should then have a colonoscopy earlier?
Yes, so the key really is family history is huge. I always say that when you're at the dinner table, that's when you can really influence whether or not only you get a colonoscopy, but whether or not you get cancer by what you put in your mouth. So if you have a family member who's had 10 or more polyps, like my father, he had that, so I knew to get a colonoscopy earlier. And I pretty much follow, you know, a pretty healthy lifestyle. But even me, I'm 48 years old, but when I was 42, I had my colonoscopy early because my dad had a lot of polyps, and I had a very large 2-centimeter polyp on the right side of my colon that would have never been found unless I had a colonoscopy, and I would have had colon cancer. But it's important to know not only your family history, but signs and symptoms of colon cancer. Rectal bleeding, okay, blood mixed in the stool, changes in bowel habits, abdominal pain. Those things are very common, so that does mean that you probably don't have cancer. However, persistent symptoms that aren't getting better with over-the-counter treatment or other treatment, you need to be evaluated by a physician no matter how old you are.
And Michael, you are going to Washington to march. You want to eradicate colon cancer. How can that happen?
Well, look, you know, first of all, my big push with this thing is that we really need to start paying attention to this with younger people. We were just on a conference call last night, and Zuri was part of this, with a bunch of young people talking about the significance of this. And to hear their response to it, they're concerned about it. So the big thing with this going to Washington, D.C. is trying to get the Congress people and the senators to pay attention to this, because we should reduce the age of when a person gets a colonoscopy. We should be doing colonoscopies I say at age 30. You know, because if we start that screening process right now, And if we started screening people between the ages of 25 and 40, colon cancer probably wouldn't exist in 15, 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you never even recommended it to your son because you just thought too early.
Well, you want to know, this is the crazy thing about this, and this is why the information is so important. This is why I'm talking to Zuri on a regular basis. The information is so important to get out to these young people so that they can be advocates for themselves.
Exactly.
I mean, if I'd have known this when my sons were like 25, this wouldn't have been a problem for me because it wouldn't have been a financial issue. Now, my goal is to try not to make it a financial issue for anybody under the age of 40 years old.
And you're trying to start a nonprofit to pay for that so people can go get that.
I'm trying to raise $200 million. If I can raise $200 million, that means between 58,000 to 85,000 young people under the age of 40 would not have to be concerned about paying for a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing that I think is really important for young people, if you were born in 1990, you have a 2 times higher chance of getting colon cancer and a 4 times higher chance of getting rectal cancer than if you were born in the 1950s.
Wow.
And that is a huge statistic, and that is something that should prompt younger people to not only know their bodies, pay attention to their bodies, learn their family history, but also pursue a colonoscopy if needed.
Oh, we're out of time. I'm so curious about why you're being born at 90.
Yeah. Well, because we're seeing a big push in terms of younger people getting colon cancer, and if you were born in 1955, you're over the age of 75, and that is, you know, where we used to see a higher rate, but that's going down, young people going up. There's multiple reasons. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that one day.
This is
And
no
you think
longer
a lot
no
of it is
person's
diet?
disease.
You
Well,
think-
yeah, a lot of it is diet. So highly processed foods, 75% of the diet of 18-year-olds and younger, what we feed our kids is high processed foods. This creates an inflammatory condition in your body that makes it ripe for cancer, along with obesity, along with a diet that is lower in fruits and vegetables. So these are tangible things that we can do. Vitamin D. Taking vitamin D. We have low vitamin D levels in this country. Taking vitamin D. So I always say that you could be your own healthcare advocate. There's things you can do to decrease your risk. But if you have any of these changes, know your body, seek help.
All right. Thank you both for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. Important
Thank you.
information. And certainly you can find more information on our website, KCAL9, KCALnews.com.